Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Colleen and I have had some success sharing bread recipes with you, and I've had a lot of people ask me to do more bread machine recipes and help them to overcome the fact that they have put their bread machines away in the cupboard or in the basement or in the shed and haven't used it for a long time. I do this mostly by using the dough setting on my bread machine and then working from there. But some of you aren't comfortable doing that, and if you want to do the whole process in your bread machine, for the most part, you can do that with these recipes. Of course, cinnamon buns you can't, and the cheese bread that we're going to make today you would have to modify. So we're going to make a few recipes today, and I am going to gather up the ingredients and we'll get started with the first recipe, which is Italian bread. And I will be right back after this with the ingredients in front of me, and we'll get started. So the recipe itself is quite simple, and it's really just a good white bread recipe that we're going to add some Italian herb seasoning to. So I'm going to start with 1 cup of water that's warm. It's, I don't know whether you call it tepid or lukewarm, but warm just so that you can feel it's a little warm when you put your finger in it. And I should say off the bat that although the bread machine recipes call for bread flour, I only ever use all-purpose flour. It's what I have in the house, and the recipes seem to adapt just fine to it. I've never had any issue with it that I'm aware of anyway, because I haven't used bread flour. I bought it once years and years ago, and I used it up and just ran out and used regular flour, and it worked just fine. Now I'm also going to have to feed the yeast that I'm going to put in here, so I'm going to put in 2 tablespoons of sugar. That was 2. And I need to put in the equivalent of an envelope, so about 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. And I have recently been corrected. I said that tablespoon was 2.25 teaspoons, and I was corrected to 3 teaspoons. Now, I'm not sure why I've ever said that, except that maybe it's always when I'm referring to baking, and I believe that the tiny packets of yeast are 2.25 teaspoons. So for those of you that caught that, thank you. I have never had a recipe fail because of my incorrect measures, but it's always good to get it right. So I need 1 teaspoon of salt, and I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of just Italian seasoning, or you could add a teaspoon of oregano and a teaspoon of basil, or whatever you're comfortable with. I have Italian seasoning, so that's what I'm going to do today. And then I'm going to add some dry ingredients to this. Well, let's get the oil in first. And I'm going to add 1/4 cup of oil, and this is just vegetable oil. It doesn't have to be fancy. And then last but not least, for sure, I'm going to add 3 cups of flour. I'm going to get my leveler though. It's just like a flat spatula, but it helps to keep me honest, so to speak, because I like to cut the tops off like I learned in home ec 50 years ago, and not use more flour or not pack it down. And I've always had good results doing it this way, and so then you do, right? So now that's 3. And this mix is ready to go into the bread machine. and I'm going to set it on the dough cycle, and it will take it through the process. It will mix it, knead it, and have its first rise in the bread machine. And then I'll come back and I'll show you what we do to prepare it for its second rise and then into the oven. Well, my bread machine is just beeped, so I know that my Italian bread that I have been mixing on my dough cycle in the bread machine is ready to come out and get formed and ready for its second rise. So let me just grab it. It rose up beautiful in there. And I'm just going to lay down a little bit of bench flour here. Don't need an awful lot. Tip it out. And I am just going to give it a few of those. I am not really going to need it an awful lot. Oh, it smells so good. And I'm going to make it, because I'm not making it in a loaf pan, I'm going to make it in a more of a rustic loaf. And I'm just going to use a sharp knife. This is a serrated one of my favorite knives I use for everything, and I'm just going to give it a few relief slices. And I'm pretty pleased with that. And I'm going to put it onto a pan. I just have a small baking sheet here, and I've put a piece of parchment paper on top of it for two reasons. One is that the pan is a very old, beat up pan, which I need to replace, but I'm not good at that. And the other is that it helps the bread not to stick. So I'm just going to transfer it onto there. I am going to cover this with a clean towel, and I'm going to set it on top of my stove where it can rise, and then we'll move on to the next bread that we're going to make today. Now the next bread that we're up to today, in between doing chores and wrapping Christmas presents and doing other things, making hospital visits and so forth, is I'm going to make a cheese bread. And it's pretty much the same recipe as the first one. So we're going to start with a cup and into the pan of my bread maker. And I am going to measure in 2 tablespoons of sugar, which gives something for the yeast to activate on, something for it to melt. And I am going to use 2 1/4 teaspoons of, this is just quick rise instant yeast. Whoop. Now you could, I've been asked that question, can I use regular yeast? Yes, you can use regular yeast, but when you get to this point, you need to stop and let it bloom about 10 minutes before you add the rest of the ingredients in there, so that you're giving it a head start. And other than that, it will work perfectly fine. You just need to give it that extra 10 minutes and it'll turn out good for you. So we need a teaspoon of salt, and as I always do, I'll put the recipes in the description box below this video so that you can refer to them. And I really only, for bread, I only have a few recipes that I use, and I use them in different forms in different breads. So it's basically like a base recipe that I use for sweet breads that are going to be sweet, and one for breads that are more savory. We need 1/4 cup of oil. I'm just using canola oil, but you use what whichever you like the best. And I'm just going to have a look. This is 6 ingredients, so water being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I have 3 cups of flour to go in here. And as I said in the first video, or the first part of the video, I use all-purpose flour. It seems to turn out just fine. But if you already have bread flour and that's your preference, then by all means use that. The only time I think I would buy special flour is if I needed cake and pastry flour for a really particular dish. I haven't needed that in a long time, so I don't have any on hand. Okay, so this is ready to go into the bread machine. I'm going to set it onto the dough setting, or dough cycle. I have a Hamilton Beach bread machine. I'm not advertising for them in any way, but that's what I happen to have, and I really like this machine. And I am going to get it working, and then I'll bring you back and we'll have a look at the Italian bread before it goes into the oven. I'll see you soon. Well, here's the Italian bread, all risen up, ready to go in the oven. I'm going to pop it in there right now, and I will definitely show you what it looks like when it's ready to come out. So here I am with the Italian breads fresh out of the oven, and before it has too much chance to cool, I am just going to brush the top with a little bit of melted butter. That's kind of my answer for all bread. It depends, I guess, if you want a really crunchy crust, but if you want a nice soft crust, a bit of melted butter. I didn't put anything on this, like some people will put an egg wash on their bread. I didn't put anything on it. I think that it comes out just beautiful without it. And there we go. That is our Italian loaf. Now, I'm making 3 different breads today with virtually the same recipe. It's just the things that we add to the base recipe that are different. So here's our Italian bread. I think it's too hot to pick up, but I can tell it's nice and light, and later on, once it's cooled and the rest have cooled, I will cut them and show you what they look like inside. Well, my machine just beeped, so I'm going to take this dough out, and we're going to make cheese bread. Now, there's probably lots of different ways to make a cheese bread, but this is the way that I make it. I've just put a little flour down here on my bench, and I am making this into a rectangle. Sorry about the noisy phone, I forgot to shut it off. And I'm going to keep in mind that this is going to go in a loaf pan, so I'm going to try and make it. Let me see, I want to make it about the same width, but it can be longer. And you could, at this point, add a brush of butter to this, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go in with about 2 cups of cheese. And if I had my druthers, I would druther use a freshly grated cheese, but I'm holding back my freshly grated cheese because I've decided that I'm going to make some soup to take to the hospital for my daughter, and one of her favorites happens to be broccoli cheese, so I'm going to use this Tex-Mex shredded cheese blend in the cheese bread. I like the meltiness, if that's a word, the meltiness of home grated cheese, because it hasn't been covered with inhibitors. I think it's some sort of a starch that they use to stop it from sticking together and clumping up while it's in the packages. Other than that, it's cheese. It's perfectly fine to use it. This doesn't melt quite as readily because it does have that extra surface of powder on it. So I am going to put about that much cheese on it. I think that's around 2 cups. And I am going to add some black pepper to this, because the black pepper just adds something to the cheese, I think. And I'm going to be quite generous with it. Now I'm going to roll this up, and as tempting as it is to roll from this side, I'm going to roll it the other way. So I'm going to go from here because I'm trying to be mindful of the size of my bread pan that this is going to go into. I want it to be the right width. Now, I'm going to pinch up these edges. And I'm going to try and seal up the ends the best I can. Not going to get too bent out of shape about it, because we're going to slice this open yet. I'm going to try and make sure that it's fairly even. And I'm going to grab my bread pan so that once I've got this little piece of art done, I will be able to put it in there right away. So I've just got a regular bread pan. I think it says it on in here what size it is. It looks like it's about 6 by 9. And I'm just going to spray it with some oil just to help it not stick to the pan. And I'll put that away. And I'll get my handy dandy knife. Oh, here it is, right here waiting for me. And I'm going to bring this a little closer to myself. And I am going to do what seems to be ridiculous, but I am going to cut right through this, because we're going to make this into a twist. So, there we go. I'm going to cut right through, and I'm going to bring all of these bits up like so. And I'm going to try and, you almost need 4 hands here for this operation. And I'm going to put this end over that end and give them a squish. And I'm going to bring these up and over and give it a squish again. And do that a 3rd time. And squish these ends together. Now, I'm going to pick this whole thing up. It's a 2-handed job. And I'm going to transfer it into the baking pan. Now I've got some that fell out, and I am just going to layer that on the top. And then I am going to bring my melted butter towards me. I'm just going to add a little melted butter to the top of this. This is totally not necessary, but it's something that I do. I just like the way it makes the crust soft. Okay, now I'm going to cover this and get it rising, and we'll move on to our 3rd recipe of the day, pretty much with the same ingredients, but how different they really are. Okay, so number 3 of the breads that we're making today basically using the same ingredients, is I am making a garlic bread today. And I'm going to start the same way as I did the others, with 1 cup of warm water. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar just to get the yeast fed and get it gone to work. It might be a little less, but it'll be fine. I'm going to add the yeast, which is 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. And there we go. I'll add 1 teaspoon of salt. And I better put the lid on this because I've already had a couple of tip overs in the kitchen today. And I'm going to add about 1/4 cup of butter. No, exactly 1/4 cup of butter. Not about. It's a measured amount. And I'm just going to press it in here. Now this would be taking the place of the oil in the regular recipe. That's the only change. It's the same amount. It's 1/4 cup, but that's the only thing I'm changing out, and it's because I'm making garlic bread that's going to have a filling of butter and garlic in it. So it makes sense to continue to enhance the flavors by adding the butter flavor right to the bread instead of in the layer in the bread. And now I need 3 cups of flour, and I'm just going to measure those as we did the ones previously, and set this to the dough cycle on my bread maker, which for my bread maker the cycle is 8, and then I will bring you back to show you the filling when it's getting close to time for that. So I've got the cheese bread over there rising, and I'm just going to put this into the oven, and that will have meant that I've made 3 different breads today, and it's only at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So you can use your bread maker on days when you're busy at home. You can use your bread maker to be a valuable tool, because this doesn't take much time to put it all into the machine and then set the machine to do the work. So I'll be back soon. Oh my gosh, check this out. This is the cheese bread. And I am just going to grab some butter and gloss that up a little bit. My butter is set up a little bit. But this is a thing of beauty. And I know that it's going to go great with the soup that I made for my daughter for dinner. I had a bowl for my lunch, and as soon as I'm done baking bread today, I am taking her some broccoli cheddar soup and maybe a couple of slices of bread. And this will be one of them. Isn't that glorious? And completely different bread. Same base, the same base actually as the Italian bread, but just with a little addition, it completely changes what it looks like and what it tastes like. So I'm going to set this aside to cool, and we will get ready to make the last of the 3 breads, which is going to be a garlic pull-apart bread. And I think that you're going to enjoy this. So for the filling for the garlic bread, I need 1/2 cup of softened butter. And I think that should do it. And I need about 1.5 tablespoons of minced garlic. And I like to use fresh garlic for this. I've never actually tried to use dehydrated garlic or powdered garlic, but I'm sure if that was all you had, it would work out okay. So I'm going to try and mince this pretty fine. I should have actually just gotten the grater out and grated it, because it would definitely have been better. I think I have about, I'm going to say, 4 large cloves. All the cloves that I had here were pretty small. So just, but I do think I have a tablespoon and a half. In fact, I probably have more, but that's okay. And into the butter it goes. I'm going to mix this good. If I had some parsley, I would put it in here as well, maybe a tablespoon or 2 of parsley. But all I have is dried parsley, and I'm going to just leave it at that for today. I'm going to mix this up until it's well mixed. Whoop! Apparently I'm going to splatter the entire kitchen with it too. And then I'll get ready, because it won't be long. And we'll hear my bread machine beep to say that it is indeed ready for the bread to come out. I'm going to be using a loaf pan for this recipe. I'm also going to have to roll it out. So I'm going to clean up my surface, grab some flour, and be right back. And there it was. That was pretty good timing. I'm just going to flour my surface. Now unplug my machine, because it's done its work for the day and I don't like to leave it plugged in. And oh, this is nice and light too. Nice light doughs. And it is spreading out really easily, so I know that it's had enough time to proof. And I'm going to try and make it as wide as the pan is, which that is. I'm going to spray the pan like I did with the last one. This is a bit of coconut oil. Just it helps with the sticking. And maybe I'll do this a little further. Not really. I think this is going to work out good. There. I'm going to spread this butter and garlic on here and get it all over. Spread it all over and get ready to roll it. It smells so good. And found my handy dandy knife. Now I'm going to roll this, and I'm going to roll it in a similar fashion to making cinnamon buns. I'm going to try and make sure that I have it as wide as the roll as I roll along. And I'm going to pinch up the edges and give them a squeeze on the ends. Give it a little bit of a massage. And now I'm going to cut this into little, we'll say, I don't know, 1/2 inch rolls. Like so. And I'm going to try and keep them mostly together. And get down to the end my pan over and I'm going to try and get this all in one handful into the pan. And there we go. Now, I'm going to just butter the top a little bit. Not that this needs a little more butter, but it'll keep it from drying out. And I'm going to cover it with a kitchen towel that I have over there. And I'm going to let it rise about 30 to 40 minutes before I pop it into a 375 degree oven. And when it's been in there about, I don't know, I'm going to say 30 minutes or 35 minutes, I'm going to test it because it's got all kinds of gooey stuff in it. And it's been a while since I made this, so I am going to put my thermometer into it and check it. I want it to be between 190 and 200 degrees, and that's a good way to tell if your bread's done. So into the warm spot over here we go, and I will see you soon. There you go, folks. This is the last one out of the oven. It is now 5 o'clock, so I know it's dark outside. It's dark so early these days. Anyway, this is the garlic bread, and it's a pull-apart bread. I'm just going to set it down here beside the other two so that you can see the 3 different kinds of bread that I made today with my bread machine while I was doing laundry, cleaning the house, wrapping Christmas presents, and making hospital visits. So you can put these bread machines to work and really work them for yourselves. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video, and if you have, please subscribe to my channel. And if you've really enjoyed it, please share it on your social media. That's how you can help me the most in this season of giving. That would be the most wonderful gift you could give me. Just share it on your social media. And I want to thank you all for following along today with this. I know it's kind of a long video, but I appreciate your patience. And I hope that you will all stay well and safe until the next time that we get together to share another recipe. Take care, folks, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye.